All right, so I'm going to get started, and we might have some more folks joining us as we go. So you saw when we invited you to this cafe, this Nonviolence Cafe, that we are talking about polarization today and how we move past polarization. So time and time again, we've seen how divisions of borders, socioeconomic standing, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and religion can spark and deepen conflict. So in 2024, 4 billion people, 40% of the population, are eligible to vote in elections around the world. And while elections can bring hope for a different future, they can also deepen these divisions, deepen polarization, and lead to conflict and even violence. So we thought this was a good time to talk about this topic and learn from some of our great team members around the world about how they overcome polarizations. And we have our human identities are so deeply entwined in these polarizations, right? So we'll learn today how we've been able to move past that in some of our work around the world. And we often hear, another impetus for this cafe is that we often hear how much all of you on this call love this work and are inspired by it, but we also get the question right along with it, but how does this actually work? How do you actually move beyond polarization with groups in conflict? So to help us give a better idea, we've asked two of NP's most experienced staff, Rocky Ambago and Daphne Macatimbol, to share some examples with us. So each of them have more than a decade working with NP in multiple contexts. And we hope you're inspired by these stories, but also gather from them some insight for your own life and how you might engage across polarized contexts during this time. And as we go, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll have time at the end for them. So first, I'm going to invite Rocky. He's a team leader in our Iraq program, and Rocky is going to start us off with his story.
Thank you, Anna. To start off, I would like to say that to share that in one of the Iraqi sub-districts where I work, men are predominant decision makers without taking into account the opinion of women. And men's word is a must to obey. The context is highly controlled by cultures and traditions that undermines the role of women in the society. Thus, their voices are never heard. So the cultural practices demands women and girls to behave in a way that aligns with those norms. Whereas if a girl's lifestyle contradicts those cultural practices, she would be subject to severe punishment. For instance, if a girl is victim of electronic extortion, she won't be able to speak to anyone in her family because of lack of trust, fear, and also being misunderstood, or being beaten or killed. Consequently, she would live in isolation and eventually commit suicide. And we have witnessed a lot of suicide cases in the area since we start working in this area here. And so a family member, usually a brother, is given authority to execute what they call honor killing. And this is the brother executes against the sister who might have been involved in any appropriate behavior that contradicts those cultural practices. So this is carried out to show the society that this particular family has eradicated the stigma that their daughter has caused into the family. Otherwise, if the family failed to kill their daughter, then they will be considered as a bad family and nobody will marry from them and vice versa. So when NP started working in the area, in this sub-district, strategically, we plan to send our female staff to engage women in a friendly way, which aligns with these cultural practices. As we always tell them that, go and drink that tea, because drink chai here is one of the common practices that the visitor is always invited to take the tea. And as you go, explain the nature of NP's work, Nonviolent Peaceforce work, and also the strategies that we use to diffuse tensions and also to help communities to be able to find solutions to their issues and the concerns. And so successfully, our women staff managed to highlight the elements of the unarmed civilian protection strategies that are used by civilians. Then we initiated the idea of creating a safe space for women to interact and share opinions and perspectives. Indeed, the idea of women protection team would encourage women to take steps in identifying protection concerns and gaps that exist within their community beyond to addressing nonviolence. The formation of women peacekeeping team, the role of women in conflict mitigation and decision-making. So when women felt motivated and eager to make moves to speak to the relevant duty bearers and advocate on behalf of their communities. So to prepare women to be able to speak to these stakeholders, the director of municipality and the mayor, we role play bad scenarios and good scenarios. The bad scenarios was meant to be able to prepare women properly to understand how in the cultural practices here, how men always looked at women down and think that women cannot be able to speak and they cannot be able to share what like legitimate issues. And so we instructed the women when they meet the mayor, we role play it in our office, that they will behave in disorderly way and speak over each other and cause a lot of noise. And when that happened, the mayor get pissed off and then the mayor sends them off out of the office. And so while debriefing the worst case scenario, we requested the women to highlight what they have done well, what they haven't, and how can they improve. And indeed, they highlighted all the negative side of the meeting and how the meeting went. And then we role play the good scenario whereby we told the women that in the first meeting, you should make sure that you leave a good impression of building relationship with the actor. And then also having chosen one particular spokesperson that will speak on behalf of the group. And then also advocating for the entire needs of the community, not individual persons in the community. And being successfully engaging the stakeholders that had made the local government to respond and listen carefully to the women and the concerns of their communities. However, a leader who is a Mukhtar, we call it Mukhtar, a traditional leader, felt that he is being challenged and losing powers. He decided to speak to the husbands of women, the women group, and that brought a setback because he was instigating where that you left women to break the traditions and cultures, speaking to men and going to the offices. And so the men got furious and then the women shared this with us. And then we had to strategize again. And then we started going to meet with the men. We identified the husbands of the women group, and we met the husbands and we explained the work of NP and then the role of women in some country programs and how women took role in the community and also foster or brought change in the community. And that motivated also some of the men, and they allowed the women to be able to continue to come to NP office and to attend trainings. And so one of the successful stories or inspiring achievements of one of the women peacekeeping team member, a lady by name called Noor, she's 40 years old, living in the camp, and she was forced to get married when she was 16 years old, and she had dropped out of school, although she was very bright student and always got high grades. She admits that her community treats women as if they are second-degree citizens. Women were not allowed to speak in public or give opinion. They usually go and just serve the family and especially their husbands. She said, we serve our families and then we serve our husbands and that's it all. We don't interact with each other. And so she thought that women are prevented from being empowered and because of men, hindering that opportunity from women. And then after attending NP or Nonviolent Peaceforce trainings of unarmed civilian protection, she realized that she has more confidence in herself and power and things to be able to bring change. And so Noor started attending these trainings in July 2021 when we had first come to this area, and then the training changed her life. And so she started to feel that encouraged that she can be able to help and support her community. And so she also encouraged other women, fellow women, to be able to attend the trainings and to be able to make decisions that will make them to be empowered, giving them the sense of belongings to making decisions and also to support their communities. And so Noor had a daughter, 16 years old, and her daughter was electronic blackmailed, or maybe she was involved in electronic blackmailing with the guy who wanted to sabotage her engagement. And so Noor's daughter was engaged to a guy who wanted, yet she was 16 years old. And so the perpetrator started spreading fake pictures of Noor's daughter, claiming that he had a relationship and affairs with her. And so when Noor knew about this situation, she believed that her daughter has never been involved in any other guy, in relationship with any other guy, but a person that the family knows very well. And so the daughter started feeling in isolation and intimidated because she knew that the consequences might be very, very severe. And so Noor drew closer to her daughter, encouraged her and assuring her that she can be able to open up to speak to her. And so the daughter spoke to Noor, and Noor started talking to the husband, the father of the daughter, who's called Hassan. And Hassan was furious because he knew that that's going to bring shame to the family, and he was planning to force their daughter to get married as soon as possible to the guy who is engaged to her. And Noor talked to the husband and Hassan that that is not going to bring a successful marriage to our daughter because she's still underage. She's still 16 years old. And all this propaganda by the perpetrator of the electronic blackmailing is trying to tarnish the image of the family and sabotage the marriage of our daughter in future. And so Noor convinced the husband, and then the husband listened to her, and she also talked to the husband that let our daughter turn 16, and then after that she can be able to be ready for marriage. And the husband, Hassan, accepted that. And Noor was so happy that she managed to convince her husband, and she managed to also save the life of her daughter. And the daughter becomes so happy with the mother, knowing that indeed the mother has got courage to convince the father so that she can be able to live a peaceful and normal life like any other girls. And so Noor was so encouraged, and she said that I felt so motivated and so happy that I was able to attend unarmed civilian protection trainings, which gave me strength and confidence so that I can be able to support my family, but also beyond my family, my communities. And she said that Nonviolent Peaceforce organization is here to build and empower the capacity of women so that the women can be able to take roles in decision making. And this is one of the successful stories in the field site where I work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rocky. I'm so grateful to you for sharing with us this story about interrupting cycles of violence in northern Iraq in this really polarized gender context. And I now have these powerful images in my mind of our team having tea with the women and to build trust, and then the role plays to practice talking to the mayor. And I'm really moved and inspired by Noor's story to bring her daughter out of isolation after digital extortion, to change her husband's mind, and to ultimately protect her daughter from violence. I love that. Someone put in the chat, drink the tea. That's right. That's sort of a simple but foundational way to build those relationships, right? So now I'm going to invite Daphne. She's a country program manager, and she's going to share her story from the Philippines.
Hi, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. My story is about Nonviolent Peaceforce work in the Philippines, particularly bringing together armed forces and armed groups in one meeting table at the local level. So in 2010, Nonviolent Peaceforce in the Philippines became official member of the peace process mechanisms between the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the government of the Philippines peace process. Nonviolent Peace Force in the Philippines was given a mandate to monitor, verify, and report the compliance and non-compliance of both parties to the conflict on international human rights law and international humanitarian law. Because of that official mandate, Nonviolent Peace Force in the Philippines started engaging and building relationship with both parties to the conflict from top to bottom commands, especially in Lanao region. And because of our persistent and proactive engagement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front base commands and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, battalion and brigades, we were able to establish relationship, trust, and acceptance to from the parties to the conflict. In 2011, Nonviolent Peace Force Lanao Field Team based in Iligan City initiated a meeting between the ground commanders or the members of the ceasefire mechanism of the MILF, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. This coordination meeting is being hosted by the Iligan Field Office as a safe space for both parties to meet. At the beginning, it was like a difficult task, especially that our compound, NP's premises, we are not allowed to bring firearms inside our office. And this, armed groups and armed forces, especially armed forces, when they are moving or when they are traveling, they are carrying firearms with them. So like the Nonviolent Peace Force Iligan office staff, before even the meeting starts, we need to negotiate with the armed forces or the armed groups to leave some of their members outside the office and also leave all their firearms outside our office. It can be they leave it in their vehicle or so it's like we always negotiate with them during the beginning of those coordination meetings. But luckily we were able to build the strong relationship and acceptance from both parties to the conflict throughout from 2011 up to as the peace process progressed. And I can still remember that during the early years of organizing the meetings between the major parties to the conflict, there are times that when people are raising issues and concerns, of course emotions and tensions is very high. Sometimes voices are raised, or there are times that tables are banged because of the heightened emotions. And in those times we often diffuse the tension by having coffee break or tea break and having side discussion over a good cup of coffee. And after the tea or coffee break, when everybody is already calm, we go back to the formal meeting table and continue our discussions. Because of this relationship, and because of the face-to-face meeting that both parties to the conflict is having, there are a lot of incidences that was also aborted. One of the example is that in one of the meetings, we received Nonviolent Peace Force Lanao field office, we received a call from our early warning, early response volunteer that troops, armed forces troops and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front troops on the ground who are patrolling meet each other in the field, and they are about to engage into firefight. and the civilians and communities near the place is already preparing for evacuation. So luckily at that time we are also in the meeting table. So immediately we discussed the issues to both ground commanders, and immediately they called all their troops to leave peacefully, and we were able to right then and there abort the possible armed conflict and protect civilians from possible displacement. And because of the trust and relationship that has built over time with this parties to the conflict, in 2017 when the Marawi was attacked by the local ISIS inspired group and was besieged for more than 5 months, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front ceasefire mechanism members and the armed forces of the Philippines agreed to work together to rescue trapped civilians inside the ground zero. So that's how that relationship was nurtured and built over time, that they were able to provide and work together to support and save civilian lives in times of emergency. And throughout, since 2011 up to the signing of the peace agreement, the incidents of violations between on the ceasefire agreement gradually decreased, and it after 3 years of having that series of meetings, it became zero incidents of encounter in Lanao region. So I think that would be all from my end. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Daphne, for sharing that story of bringing these two conflicting parties who've been fighting for decades to sit together and build relationships. And it's amazing to me how you and the team were able to hold a safe space and keep calm, even when tensions were high. And I love that there's a ritual of breaking bread through a coffee break that shows up in your story too. And the fact that the two groups, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, worked together during the Marawi crisis is a really powerful testament to what's possible when we overcome polarization. So thank you. So we're going to turn to questions now. If there's a couple in the chat, but feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and we'll work through those during the rest of our time together. So I'm going to turn to Rocky for the first question. Rocky, sorry, I'm looking through my chat. Okay. Rocky, were there unhappy stories of your work in Iraq, and how do you deal with them? So, and I think we do get asked fairly regularly, we share with you the success stories, right? And there's lots of ups and downs along the way. There's lots of times where violence did happen and we need to respond to it. And we're asked often how our team kind of manage that emotion too, and or how they work in the community to recover from those instances. So I'll turn it to you, Rocky, to share a little bit about that.
If I have gotten you well, I think what I would say is that when we as an organization, we believe that we live within the community where we serve. And so as in international and also national staff, of course, they are natives of the area, but the international staff will live in the community where we intend to deliver the services that we have as an organization. And therefore, we rely on our national staff much to be able to understand and analyze the context very well, to be able to understand what are the do's and don'ts, and to be able to also try to understand the history in the area in terms of what that impacted the communities in one way or another, and so that we can be able to know also a little backgrounds about also the key actors in the area and also the community, especially like, for instance, the ethnic groups in the area where we work. And that will give us kind of like some guidance on how we can be able to plan and strategize, how we can be able to start engaging the communities. For instance, the story that I narrated, we understood that the area is, we call it Mujtama Zukuri. in Arabic, meaning like the society that is predominantly men are the ones who are doing everything and controlling all the authorities. And so this is something, obviously, women are okay with it and they be able to comply with whatever the situation they found themselves in. But looking at that and also trying to let women know that they also have potential to be able to take up this kind of like challenge, to see that they can be able to participate also to bring change into their communities. And talking with them in the friendly way of around the tea, making it more easier to be able to understand and let them ask questions and let them also be able to open up and share ideas. And then also relying much on what they think is viable, because like, for instance, asking them, how do you lead your day-to-day life? What activities do you do? They can tell you. And then, for instance, you ask, what else? And so when sharing those kind of, letting them share the day, how they do the activity in daily basis, and also the activities that they are engaged in every day. So then you can be able to understand, and then also you can be able to say, okay, what about bringing them together to have enough space, not only like you being isolated in your home alone, but having space to talk with other women. And so the idea become more acceptable. And then from there, you build a trust. And then it takes time, of course. And slowly you take steps, one at a time. And then you started talking to them, and then also introducing the Unarmed Civilian Protection methodology. And so that's how we move on. I don't know whether I managed to answer your question.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Rocky. And I think that there is something, part of what I'm hearing from your answer is that there are in the places where we do our work, there is ongoing violence often, and we still show up to do our work every single day and maintain that persistence, right? And that's how we keep working in the face of those unhappy stories that might exist, is in part in keep doing the work, right? And keep showing up to have the conversations with women and seeing what support they need. I do have a quick follow-up question for you, Rocky, around you've been doing this work a long time, and how you personally stay motivated and inspired to keep doing this work in the face of violence.
It's something, good question, actually. What motivates me and keep me going is just, you find that when you're talking to people, and then you hear them saying back to you, or maybe quoting and saying, if it wasn't because of Nonviolent Peaceforce, or if it wasn't because of the training I was enrolled in, I wouldn't have done, or maybe got where I am today, or I wouldn't have maybe helped my family or my community member. And so that inspires me, because I would like to see a change that is acceptable also, even though it might not be accepted by the community, but community will realize also that it is very important, because actually, when we look at this context, women at home, they do a lot of work. They manage conflicts of children and family members, and the husband might be away at the workplace. You come back, you might not be able to know what is happening here. She has been managing a lot, and she has the potential, she has the courage. So why not also widening that space beyond your homes? And so, yeah.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Daphne now. So Daphne, in the stories we're sharing stories in a very small amount of time, but they are long stories. And so we have a question here about how long did it take to get the parties to meet for the first time? And what was the experience of kind of engaging with people and engaging with the groups in advance of getting them to sit down together?
Yeah, I think it took a while for the team to bring people together. These people have been adversaries for the longest time, even, and at that time the peace process situation is also like in a roller coaster, ups and downs. but it also, I think one of the key factors is that the team also managed to establish, trust, the persistence of the team in building relationship. I remember during those times we used to conduct meetings, like visits to this, camps, the armed forces of the Philippines camps and the Moro Islamic Liberation camps. We used to visit them. If we visit like twice a week for the with the MILF camps, we also need to visit twice a week for the armed forces of the Philippines camp and the Philippine National Police. That's how like consistent and persistent and strategic we are in terms of building relationship. It took almost a year in terms of the preparation, and and even like those, like after the first meeting, we still, we are not really like putting you know um high hopes that at the first meeting it will be sustained. So after the first meeting, we still, work on building relationship, especially with the, you know, uh, armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. Oftentimes there are change of commands. So you need to continue, building relationship. And among the team members, we are at that time, I think, a team of 8 people. So between our team, there are already certain tasks. So for example, me, I have a certain number of AFP commands, like camps and commanders, that I am in charge to, communicate. And all other colleagues also has, the same task. We have, because we are dealing with numbers of battalions and brigades and base commands of the MILF and the Armed Forces of the Philippines. So yeah, it took a while, and it's a continuing process.
Thank you, Daphne. And one thing that Daphne has shared with me that I've learned from Daphne is about figuring out the right positionality in a situation. So we were doing some role plays in the US actually, and Daphne shared that whenever the teams would go and meet an official commander, they would often send a woman because she's less threatening, like from the team, because she's less threatening to the commander than if a man had gone. So you kind of think strategically about who on the team is the best person to talk to which people in the community. And Rocky mentioned that about sending men on the team to go meet with some of the male leaders in the community. That we're always being as strategic as we can about the best ways to build those relationships. And Daphne, I have a follow-up question for you. One of the questions in the chat was how you actually got the soldiers to leave their arms outside the meeting.
It was actually, most of the time, it's my task to do that. And at the beginning, it was really difficult. It was difficult task. I was very young then. So imagine, in the Philippines, we are also a very patriarchal society. So just like, how Rocky described the patriarchal society in Iraq, Philippines is also the same. But as a young woman, it was a very challenging role. But I also rely on our principles, no, the principles of nonviolence, our values as a, third party who is providing safe space and, creating safe space for parties to the conflict. And, firearms is a symbol of violence. So when you have a symbol of violence, it does not, show that the space is safe for everyone. So at the beginning, it was difficult to convince, but we use also somehow command responsibility. So I used to engage the high-ranking official so that he will be the one to, command the officers, lower rank officers to, just leave, or he will be the one to identify who will be left outside the office and just, guard their firearms. So, but eventually when the meetings, like succeeding meetings, succeeding years, they already learn, and they are the ones who is already automatically leaving their firearms without, negotiations already. So yeah, but at the beginning it was like a tough, task to do.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you for doing that. And there was one part of these questions was about the makeup of our staff in the Philippines. And so when our Philippine country program started, a lot of the staff was international. It was similar to our other to how country programs start up in different parts of the world where we have a mix of international and national staff. But today, our staff in the Philippines is all national except for one. So all of our staff in the Philippines are Filipino. And our head of mission for the Philippines and for Southeast Asia as a region is from Indonesia. So, okay, I'm going to ask a question over to Rocky. If you could talk a little bit more about how you address a scenario where the traditional leaders will consider Nonviolent Peace Force as undermining their leadership, especially where women's human rights are violated.
Thank you. Actually, the Mukhtar who went and from the situation on the ground, when we met with him, actually, we explained to him how important that the role of women is in the community. It's hard for them to be able to accept that. It's hard for them to. I remember when we were celebrating the International Women's Day, how some traditional leaders came to me and said, now you are promoting women. Because I made a statement in my speech, I said, with the respect to the traditions and cultures in the area. I told them, I said, but you heard my speech. I told you that we also respect that, even though we encourage and support women, but we are not actually violating your roles in the community as men. It's just women are complementing. Sometimes we as men, we may forget certain things. We might maybe undermine certain things, but these are very crucial and important things that women can be able to pay attention to it. Sometimes maybe we have blind spots. So if you don't have some sort of complementary person that can complement your roles, then you have a gap that is existing. And the whole thing is not about them taking up your authority and responsibility. No, they are there to complement your work and to support you. And so when in 2021, when we are doing the online survey in the area, men say that Nonviolent Peace Force actually worked a lot with women. That's why women made a lot of success in the area, neglecting us as men. They say that. And so they say next time we also wanted to be part of the trainings. And so that one also puts them in the challenge that because when you come in the area, most of the time you find that maybe men are so skeptical and maybe they are so occupied with the things that they are doing, maybe they may not pay attention as much as women do. And so you start analyzing that, and then the entry point could be women, and then women will sell the idea to their husbands. And so that's how we try. Yeah.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay, so we have time for just a couple more questions. Daphne, has there ever been a scenario where a particular community considered your work as not being enough for them at that time?
Yes, of course. Nonviolent Peace Force work has also a lot of limitations. We're very limited in terms of funding, and our role also is very focused on civilian safety and security. So NP as an organization, we don't provide relief services. And at times, communities, when they see international organizations, the first thing that comes to their mind is we are bringing, relief services. So for NP, since that is not our main focus, providing relief assistance or humanitarian aid is not our primary focus, but we also did not stop from there. NP is the heart of the humanitarian development and peace nexus. So we are the connectors of the three pillars of the peace. So we used to work with different agencies. We maximize relationship that we build with government agencies like the Social Welfare and Development Office for humanitarian aid or relief services coming from the government. We also maximize relationship with other humanitarian organizations such as UN agencies to facilitate delivery of aid services, because there are times, especially during emergencies, that other humanitarian actors cannot safely provide relief services. So NP, we maximize our acceptance, relationship, and trust that we've built over time to accompany relief and humanitarian services to be delivered in the emergency in areas where affected by emergencies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daphne. Okay, so I am going to ask one final question that I prepared ahead of time. So I'm going to use a little moderator privilege here. So in thinking of one thing I named at the beginning is that as many as 40% of the world's population will vote this year. And it feels like a really contentious, politicized time, polarized time in our world. So I'd like to ask Rocky and then Daphne, if you could share advice for us. What advice would you have for those of us on this call in how we take some of the lessons that you've learned, some of your experiences? What advice would you have in building bridges in our daily lives with those who hold opposing views from us? So I'll start with Rocky.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I thought you were going to say start with Daphne. Okay, yeah, it's good. It's good. Try. And one thing that I believe in is that change is not impossible and it's inevitable. And number two, that as we move forward in this world, if we like, for instance, Nonviolent Peaceforce and the work that we do, would like to see that communities are shifting from using weapons and violence as a means of solving or reducing tension or solving problems. And so for that shift to happen, even when it happened during the time that I was in South Sudan, to see that civilians can be able to adapt strategies, nonviolent strategies to solve problems, I was actually amazed. And so that shift, I believed in it. I believe in what I want to happen. And I was convinced and have passion that whoever.
Oh, Rocky, you're breaking up just a little bit. I don't know if you want to turn off your video and then you can start over a bit, just a few sentences back.
Yeah, I was just saying that we need to have faith in what we need to bring into the world, or in our life, in our neighborhoods, communities, and having faith in what you would like to use or you would like to see happening. You must make sure that you have a passion for it, and then try to also look at people that can be able to, you can be able to sell the idea to, and then they have a positive response, so that you can be able to broaden the space of how you can have like-minded people, and then you can be able to move and to be able to create a safe space where we can be able to bring the change that we wanted to see. And so I would just encourage that, have faith, and then baby steps with persistence, confidence, and every setback, let us treat it as a stepstone for going forward. And every challenge that we may face, let us consider that it will shape our strategies so that we can be able to have a better strategies to be able to move forward. And so if you believe in what you believe and you are doing it in consistent way, even the people that you intend to help to be able to adapt to the strategies or whatever you intend to offer to them, they will know that this person have faith in what they are bringing to us, and that means there is something maybe important. Let's try to pay attention, find it out. And so sometimes you find this kind of people in the communities where you're serving. And so that's what I believe, and that's what I think I can be able to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. I really appreciate that. And Daphne, what advice might you have?
Yeah, earlier we've also discussed about, how colorful, politics in the Philippines is, and how it became a tool for, polarization and, disruption of family relationship, even within the families. So I think I gave like my personal family experience in our place and in our family before before any election, whether it is local, it is national elections or regional elections. We used to have family meetings, and within the family we identify like who are the people who will vote for whom, and we always like respect each other's choices, but we make sure that everyone is voting with informed mind and informed decision. And at times, to avert conflict within families and even within our communities, we remain we remain as neutral and non-partisan. So sometimes we divide like votes equally to remain, non-partisan between, opposing candidates. And we always advocate that election is just one day, and when relationships are break, or when relationship is, when elections is the reason for, breaking relationship, it will take a while, or it will take some time for relations to be mend, no, and it will take probably another election for the relations to be mend. So yeah, that's how, elections, I think in most part of the world is, if affecting relationship. But I hope that, it will also inspire and become a tool for everyone's, you know for everyone's acceptance and respect towards, others decision, sound decision making. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Daphne. I'm really grateful for your advice as well. Someone just put in the chat quickly about if we have plans to train Bangladeshi youth or professionals, and Bangladesh is one place that's kind of been on our radar, but we're searching for funding, but haven't quite found it yet. So, but know that it's been on our radar. And I know there's a few, I'm just pausing through the chat. I know there's a few questions we didn't get to, and some of them are bigger kind of nuts to open up. So I'm going to follow up with everyone we didn't get to answer your question, to be able to share some more content and get some input from staff to properly answer your question. So if, as we wrap up, I just want to say, if you were inspired by what we've shared with you today, we always invite you to be a part of this important work. And many of you are in lots of different ways. Every year it takes $26 million to fully fund NP's mission. And that might sound like a lot, but we're working to radically transform the way the world responds to conflict. So while most of our funding comes from large government contracts, we rely on individual gifts to close that crucial gap in funding and make this wonderful work possible. So there's a link in the chat if you would like to make a gift now, and you'll find that same link in the follow-up email that you'll receive after this gathering. And that email will also have a recording of this event. And just know our giving webpage just updated, so it might look a little different from before, but you're in the right place. And then last but not least, we've put another link in the chat with a survey. If you would like to let us know how we did today and share your feedback about this particular cafe, we value your time and hope that you found this event helpful to your own life and inspiring for the journey ahead for all of us to build more peace and safety in this world. And that survey link will also be in the follow-up email with the recording and the giving page link. So thank you again so much, everyone, for your time, for being here, and for all you do to make the world a little bit better for all of us. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.